Kill your masters. That was the battle cry. That was the branding. Michael Santiago Render sold us a high-definition fantasy of black liberation. He built an entire corporate identity on the aesthetics of the revolution. He told the community to plot, plan, strategize, organize, mobilize. Let's look at the mobilization. The revolutionary transformed into a podcast host, nodding along to a man who sells fake space magic, alien refugees, $1,500 space supplement plans, and holographic universe theories. The architect of black capitalism became a megaphone for digital charlatans. Today, we're executing a forensic autopsy on the misinformation pipeline. We're diagnosing the plague of pseudo-intellectualism destroying the black community. We're dragging Michael Render, aka Killer Mike, Billy Carson, Tariq Nasheed, and even the teachings of Dr. Sebi to the center of the room. We're exposing the catastrophic damage caused by the aesthetic of intellect. What up, y'all? It's your boy, old man, aka Oda Dread, and I'm tired. I'm tired of watching the culture I love rot from the inside out. We survived redlining. We survived the crack epidemic. We still struggle to survive the prison industrial complex. Right now, we're also drowning in a digital wasteland where loud, confident ignorance is treated like a college degree. We exist in an epistemic crisis. We live in an era of liquid modernity where traditional journalism and academic rigor are replaced by immediacy and surface-level engagement. Now, some of you may remember when I covered Billy Carson on this channel. I exposed his fake MIT certificates, his defunct first-class space agency, his history of identity theft allegations. I laid out all the receipts. When a Grammy Award-winning, politically connected Atlanta titan like Killer Mike sits across from a verified fraud like Billy Carson and treats him like a scholar, he commits an act of epistemic violence against our people. We're diagnosing exactly how the Guru-to-Grifter Pipeline operates. We're exposing how trusted leaders launder their credibility to feed parasites. Michael Render accumulated massive moral capital in this culture. He's the son of an Atlanta policeman and a florist. Raised in Collier Heights, he understood the Atlanta way, the historical pursuit of black economic self-sufficiency. He came up through the Dungeon family. He stood next to Big Boy and Andre 3000. He earned a Grammy in 2002. He engineered a brilliant pivot. Partnering with LP in 2012, he launched Run the Jewels. They created an abrasive, industrial, anti-establishment juggernaut. Render provided the soundtrack for the 2020 protests. He stood next to Bernie Sanders. He delivered that highly emotional, tear-filled press conference during the George Floyd riots.
Instead of burning your home to the ground, you will have time to properly plot, plan, strategize, and organize and mobilize in an effective way.
Telling the youth to stop burning down their own city and start investing in black-owned banks. Well, his bank in particular, actually. He launched Greenwood Bank in 2020, which isn't really a bank in a traditional sense. It's what you call a fintech company akin to PayPal and the likes. He opened Graffiti's swag barbershop. He positioned himself as the ultimate Southern patriarch. He possessed the sharp suit, the booming cadence, and the undeniable aura of a self-made leader. Success always exposes the cracks in the foundation. Render transitioned from a revolutionary artist into a media host. He appeared on NRA TV to bash student protesters. He sat down with Brian Kemp. He aestheticized his outsider status to platform unvetted, dangerous ideologies. He created a massive vacuum of intellectual rigor. Nature hates a vacuum. Parasites fill the void immediately. Let's talk about the Conversate interview with Billy Carson. This interaction is a masterclass in agnotology. Agnotology is the systemic strategic creation of ignorance for economic and social control. Render brought Carson onto his platform and provided a permission structure for absolute delusion. Billy Carson operates the forbidden knowledge grift. Carson utilizes credential inflation. He claims degrees from elite universities that are actually just short online courses that are available to anyone with an internet connection. Carson throws out high-register jargon like fractal holographic nature of the universe and Brahma Astra space weapons to overwhelm the listener. He uses the aesthetic of intellect to mimic a scholar. Carson hooks Render by validating his blackness. He talks about the Dogon tribe and their ancient knowledge of the Sirius star system. He uses ancestral pride as bait. Once the bait is taken, Carson pivots to claims about the Anunnaki, breakaway civilizations, blue, black, and green space aliens. And what's Killer Mike do? He nods. He validates the insanity. He folds like a lawn chair. Render bridges the gap for his audience by bringing up the Tuskegee experiment. He uses a real documented historical trauma inflicted on Black Americans to justify leaning towards Carson's space conspiracies. Carson weaponizes our valid medical mistrust to sanitize his sci-fi eugenics. Killer Mike provides the microphone. When a physically imposing, financially successful leader like Killer Mike treats a charlatan as a peer, he levels the playing field. The audience cannot distinguish between smart, adjacent performance and actual academic expertise. Render lent his hard-earned credibility to a man who sells fake history for a subscription fee. He prioritizes the domain of podcast criticism over the domain of factual action. Billy Carson is just a modern mutation of a much older virus. This entire ecosystem relies on a historical blueprint of racialized biology. Look at Alfredo Bowman, aka Dr. Sebi. I performed a full autopsy on Sebi. Bowman sold the lethal, scientifically illiterate doctrine of the African biomineral balance. He claimed the African gene resonates on a higher electrical vibration. He claimed diseases cannot survive in an alkaline environment. Genes are instructions. They code for proteins. They do not vibrate. The human body regulates its own blood pH perfectly. If it fails, well, you cease to exist. Dr. Sebi engaged in biological terrorism. He preyed on the medically disenfranchised. He convinced desperate, dying black folk to abandon life-saving antiretroviral therapies and chemotherapy for expensive, unverified cell food. He turned manageable diagnoses into death sentences. Look at Tariq Nasheed. He uses the exact same operational playbook. Tariq outsources our actual history to a xenophobic, isolationist FBA grift. He repackages our trauma into a monthly Patreon subscription. He isolates the community from the rest of the African diaspora using colonial caste system logic, constantly separating us from diasporic allies while staying silent about actual threats to our people like Chud the Builder. These men are intellectual slumlords. They buy up the dilapidated, burning trauma of our history and rent it back to us at a premium. When Killer Mike platforms a derivative of this exact same pipeline, he actively endangers the community he claims to protect. You cannot build a financial fortress while feeding your people psychological poison. Michael Render claims he wants to fortify the black community. You do not fortify a community by stripping them of their critical thinking skills. You fortify them through the slow, unglamorous labor of learning. The attention economy is a meat grinder. Social media algorithms perform epistemic triage. They decide what's true based entirely on engagement, not journalistic significance. Falsehoods travel 6 times faster than verified truth on these platforms. We're trapped in filter bubbles and echo chambers that punish viewpoint diversity. If you question the hidden history, you get labeled a sellout. Let's look at the psychological data. They call it bullshit receptivity. Individuals who find profundity and vacuous buzzwords show a massive deficit in analytical thinking. They show a high vulnerability to conspiratorial ideation. By prioritizing the podcast debate aesthetic over actual learning, Killer Mike threw his own audience into the algorithmic wood chipper. He replaced the slow labor of reading, verifying, studying with the fast food dopamine hit of a space alien conspiracy theory. He traded the revolutionary fist for a landlord's ledger and a podcast sponsorship. He took the legacy of the SCLC and traded it for a YouTube plaque. That is a sickening lack of discernment. Michael Santiago Render is suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect wrapped in a gold chain. He mastered the aesthetics of the Southern Patriarch. He commands the room. He possesses the cadence of a preacher. He also completely lacks the intellectual discipline required to protect his flock from digital predators. This creates a competence paradox. The people with the poorest bullshit detection skills are often the most confident in their ability to identify the truth. This ignorant strutting prevents the least capable individuals from recognizing their own vulnerability. Render operates under a misleading coherence. He thinks asking questions on a podcast makes him a philosopher. It makes him a mark. He thinks the aesthetic of a sharp suit in a barbershop debate substitutes for academic rigor. Billy Carson is a masterful parasite. He constructed an entire empire of ignorance by exploiting our historical desire for greatness. He leverages the smart adjacent aesthetic to sell you a simulation of intelligence. Dr. Sebi was a biological predator who weaponized our identity to sell alkaline snake oil to terminal patients. Tariq Nasheed is a xenophobic timeshare salesman slicing up the diaspora for super chats. They form the misinformation pipeline. They are the new wardens of the sunken place. Michael Render didn't kill his masters. He became a brand ambassador for the new ones. He opened the gates of Atlanta and invited the Trojan horse directly into the living room. We must detach from this pipeline immediately. We have to violently reject the aesthetic of intellect. Wearing a sharp suit and speaking confidently about the Anunnaki does not make you a scholar. It makes you a high-level scammer. Buying into pseudo-profound bullshit rots your critical faculties. Liberation requires the tedious, unglamorous labor of learning. It requires the admission of ignorance. It requires the interrogation of bias. You cannot buy freedom for $1,500 a bottle, and you cannot find our history hiding on a spaceship. Stop outsourcing your brain to entertainers. Stop letting podcasters dictate your reality. Sever the cord. Burn the misinformation pipeline to the ground. Killer Mike went from run the jewels to running with fools. And that is the nastiest work of all. That's the video. If you're exhausted by the intellectual slumlords, podcast grifters, the pseudo-intellectual masquerade, man, drop a comment right now. Did Killer Mike compromise his legacy by platforming Billy Carson, or are we just watching the inevitable result of the podcast era? I want to read your perspective. I'm constructing this platform to dismantle the illusions. We're building an army of truth tellers. So hit subscribe if you value documented reality over performative outrage. Check out my full autopsies on Billy Carson, Dr. Sebi, and Tariq Nasheed here and here. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss my next drop. But if you do nothing else, at the very least, and you know the motto, until next time, be the person you like to meet. Peace.
Oh man, I'm about to pop out. And you know I brought the drop out.